On today's show.
They call me crazy.
This is K-Rockcast, the podcast where music and perspectives collide.
I'm Anne, a music lover who's the ultimate fan.
And I'm Kelly, a professional musician. Join us as we dive into the world of the Rose and other Korean and Asian rock bands.
Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll wildly disagree, but what's guaranteed is a passionate, hilarious, and unfiltered conversation about the music that unites us and the bands that inspire us. Hi, everybody. We're back for our special episode series, Into the Studio. And today we are deep diving into the Roses song Alive from their 2023 album Duel. Kelly, we are joined on this deep dive by two special guests today who worked with the Rose to create this song. One guest in particular is a very special friend of the podcast now, because not only was he our first geniuses behind the scenes on K-Rockcast, but he's now our first repeat guest.
Yes.
So how about you introduce our guest today, Kelly?
Is that a repeat guest or is that a repeat offender?
Yeah, really.
That's crazy.
And we're throwing around the word genius? All right.
I'm leaving. I literally
Every now and
I
again.
thought this was the Make Fun of JJ podcast.
Jesus. This is my roast episode.
Ooh, can we? God. I wasn't even prepared. A scroll comes out, I put the glasses on, the monocle.
This sucks. Why don't I even wake up today?
So, people,
I have a
we
lot
are joined today by the wonderful Jason Mater, who is our first guest, and he is an LA-based songwriter, producer, and he has worked across rock, pop, film, and everything you can think of. His early career began engineering projects involving major artists like Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Stevie Wonder. Paul McCartney's in there as well. And so this was while working at major studios like Capitol Records and Paramount Recording. More recently, obviously, he collaborated with The Rose as a writer and producer on the track Alive from the album Duel, and helped craft the song's powerful blend of rock and electronic production. Hi, Jason.
Hello. I thought you were going to say the genius Jason. You like introduced him as like, he's a genius.
Only JJ's the genius.
Yeah, okay. Now, now that we got me out of the way, go ahead and introduce the statuesque,
No, I'm good.
godlike
man. I'm
human.
Good with the intro I got. I don't need
godlike
anymore.
human, repeat God human.
And then, of course, we have our second guest, who apparently doesn't need any introduction at this point whatsoever at all.
Yeah,
This is JJ.
Afterthought.
This is JJ, the Emmy-nominated Billboard #1 mixing engineer, and JJ has worked with incredible artists like Papa Roach, Hollywood Undead, Connor Matthews, The Rose, and some weird band from Sheffield called Spectral. Sorry about the last one, JJ.
Get the plug where you can, huh?
So I'm just going to ask you, gents, how do you two know each other?
Ben, how did we meet?
So we were introduced the
Yeah.
week. This is
Nick.
kind of a long story. I'll make it as short as I can. We were introduced the week before I moved out to Los Angeles through a mutual friend named Nick Pingree, who is also a phenomenal producer. I think it was because you were looking for a really quick mix on the song that ended up on Shameless.
Yeah, was that
Count-
just a
count
week
my-
before you moved out here?
Yeah.
I feel like you mixed that a couple months before you
No.
moved out
It was a week before I
Oh,
got
wow.
here.
Yeah.
And knowing I was moving out here and knowing I only knew 2 people, was like, man, I should make friends with this guy. So I started texting him about the song. And a couple days later, we had talked about you were looking for someone to share the studio because you were traveling a lot. Little
Yeah.
did we know that wasn't going to happen because
Yeah, that shut down real
3
quick.
weeks after I moved here, COVID happened. And so no one was traveling. And yeah, we met 2 days after I moved here in person for the first time and hung out for like 2 hours. And in that 2 hours, at the end of it, he gives me the keys to the studio, the alarm codes, computer passwords, everything, and says, I'm going to Nashville for 3 days. Have fun.
What?
Like, this is psychotic. Like, I don't know who's dumber here. Like, you just gave everything to this person you don't know, and the person that introduced us, I'd only met in person for an hour. So like,
Well, see, I didn't know that, but either way. So
or if I was coming into like a saw trap where he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter, go in there anyway. You're the captain.
So anyway, JJ stole everything. I came back 3 days later. It was all gone. I still feel it's part of like a long con though.
Yeah, because I kept the keys when I left.
Yeah.
So I still have the keys, and someday he's gonna show up and nothing will be in this room.
It's just empty.
I told him I'd leave that.
We have an understanding that I'm okay with a good con. I'm here for a good controversy. I think that's fine. That's cool with me, but just leave the computer and the hard drives. Like, you know, everything else, have fun.
Yeah.
I love that story. Well, one of the reasons why we like to do these kind of episodes into the studio, having professionals like yourselves that work more behind the scenes, because as Kelly said, you know, our viewers and our listeners may not know all the ins and outs of creating music. We kind of, as the fans' perspective that I have, I just know the polished product, right? What I listen to, but there's so much work that goes on to create that polished product. So before we go into this song in particular, maybe walk us through very high level, what is the process to create a song from kind of start to finish?
I mean, there's multiple avenues to creating songs, from, you know, people like Elton John sitting down at a piano by himself, creating, you know, hits, to Beyonce songs where there's 25 people involved in the room and everything. So I'll kind of give a little bit more of just my perspective on where songwriting starts on that aspect. And really with something like this with The Rose, it was, I got asked with my buddy Seth Rieger, who's a songwriter on the song as well, to come in with the band. And so they all came into the studio, and it was my first time meeting the guys, meeting their whole team. And there was probably, you know, all five of them, I think, were here at the time, along with probably 7 people that worked for the band and everything. And it really was just more or less like, we kind of talked for a little bit. We try to get the vibe of what's going on and then dive into their lives. As the songwriter and creative side, it's about the artist when they come in. So it was really about talking with them, and then just through that, you know, something else, I think they said something, it's like, you know, this is our coming alive moment. Like, this is what we're trying to do, is rebirth, create something new. And we were playing just this little guitar line, and next thing I know, someone was singing "This night that I wanna," like, it just kind of started with that, and it blossoms from there. I think everybody locks into what the sound is supposed to be in this like vision, and it starts snowballing. Sometimes it takes a while for that snowball to get going. You can't rush the process, and other times it's just whoo, and the song will be done in like 20 minutes. Other times it takes several days to weeks to fine tune that song. But yeah, so I think that's kind of like the starting point, really, of songwriting and creation of it, is getting the magic in the room started, which is really kind of what we're doing. We're pulling out ideas from thin air, emotions, and putting it into melodic and lyrical terms that people can understand what we're thinking at the time, what we're trying to say at the time.
I feel like, did the person who came up with that melody, was it Hajun? Was it Dylan?
Oh, I can't remember.
I feel like he's normally like the guy that just pulls these melodies out of his ass. So I was
it was probably him and Seth at the time. Seth is also one of those brilliant lyricist melody guys that they're just kind of like ADD take the wheel and just start saying things. And just like, so I'm over here a lot of the time. I'll sit and work on the instrumentation. Like, we kind of have this idea, wanted to go a little bit more like retro with like an 80s vibe intertwined with the rock sort of situation as we were starting. So once that happens, I'll dive into like building the chords and building the structure while they're back there kind of like talking about some lyrical concepts, you know, the melody vibes and whatnot. So by the time I'm listening back and when they say something like, oh, I see where they're going, I'll start adjusting. And when they hear where I'm going, they're like, ooh, what if we, you know, so it's kind of this little dance between the producer setup right here and sometimes with the songwriters and the band are doing it, or the top liners, you know, or the band is doing in the back. So I can, you know, our ideas are flowing basically. So I'm keeping up with them. They're keeping up with me. And by the end of the session, you know, the day, hopefully it's like, great, this sounds like a song. Let's track some vocals. Let's put some things down.
And then I think, JJ, when you were on our show the first time, you kind of went into your role as a mix engineer, but keeping with this theme of just talking high level, how a song's created, tell us then where your role picks up from where Jason kind of left off in the process overall.
Sure. So this song in particular was one that I think they needed pretty quickly, right? Like, I feel like a lot of the stuff for this record was very, hey, we need this today or we need this by tomorrow. So this one came over. This is my first time working with the band, but we'd done so many songs together that like he knew what to expect from me. I knew what to expect from him, but there was a step in between where the band had him send them what he had done, and then they added stuff. And so my first time, I got the files from them directly. I'm listening through the song, and they had added that dubstep breakdown section. And so it didn't match the demo that I had. So I had to reach out to him and say, hey, like, what's happening here? Because this isn't in your demo. And through a lot of talking to their manager and talking to the band, we figured out, oh, okay, they added this section, they like it. And so usually it starts with exactly where they left off. You know, they've made this song, all the ingredients are there. Now I need to figure out how to make room for everything so nothing's kind of stomping on anything else. You know, you can hear the vocal the entire time. Maybe they want the drums to hit a little harder. Maybe they want the entire song louder. Maybe they want a weird guitar that goes back and forth between speakers. That is really where I pick up.
Yeah, I think if I can add to this as well, like, because I started as an engineer, so a lot of times as I'm creating, I'm also crafting the sound as well with my EQs and stuff. So when I send to JJ, like to, you know, the mixer, he gets the vision of the song. He gets, you know, he has a production ear too. Like, he's not just like, let me focus on just EQs and stuff. He's like, okay, this song needs to speak in this sort of like 80s phaser sort of, you know, synth sort of vibe. So let me, you know, you added that like kind of Widener phaser thing to the vocal to help it pop, which is like a very 80s thing. So he stayed in the mindset of the vision that we had crafted that day in the room together. And so that's a very important thing. And I'm like very picky about my mixers because they can make or break a song too. And I told them, I was like, JJ's your guy. Like, you have to hit up JJ. He will get the vision and it's going to sound amazing. He got the vision. It sounded awful, but that's fine.
I'll give you $20 for being nice, but I'm taking it back now.
Yeah, horrible mixer, but oh man, what a great visionary. Wow. Down again. Give me my $20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that in a nutshell, like a kind of a crash course is start, finish the idea. Of course, there's mastering on the end, but really that's just kind of like the clear coat on the car, just to make it like shine and all lights. That's mastering. So I won't trash talk any mastering engineers. They're a very important part of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're like the therapists to us songwriters. No, JJ's the therapist.
Dude, I'm not getting paid for it.
I send him emails sometimes. I'm like, is this okay to send? He's like, no. Here, word it like that. I'm like, wow, that's a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that overview. So I think now let's dig more into the creation of Alive. Kelly, why don't you kind of kick us off with more on the production side of things?
One of the things that you mentioned as you were running through the sort of brief creation of a song was how Alive started to form. Was there one sort of pivotal moment where everybody had that aha moment? Because it normally happens when you're in your room and everybody just stops and looks at each other and goes, that's it. And you get the musician's nod. Was there a moment with Alive that you knew that it was going to be the pivotal song on that album? Because it truly was.
I feel it was, if I could, because I'm remembering back now, 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that a collective?
Yeah.
Are you guys logging in the therapist in a little bit just so we can all go over that?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Definitely.
I think there was this moment when I put the vocoder on that lately. I've been thinking, like in the pre-chorus, and when all of a sudden that hit, I think it was just like, I feel like everyone's like, oh yeah,
That part is so fucking good.
It makes like, because we were like, what do we do here? I think we were like trying some harmonies and stuff. I was like, I don't think it's harmony. We're kind of living in this like retro synth era. Let me try something. And then I kind of played it on the keys. And I think that just set up for the chorus to go big. And I remember, I'm trying to remember who it was. But once we were like singing that, baby, I'm alive. Like as soon as we hit that, we were like, oh, this feels like it could be done in the stadium.
Yeah.
And so I was just started to build, but I mean, it really started with, let's see if I can find the absolute, the bass. We played it on a bass guitar. What was that? That was it. We started with that and just, we played that on, you can't see the guitars back there, but it's like an old school Paul McCartney style bass. Nice. And just created that sound. And next thing we knew, I locked it in with this bass, the 80s like jam sort of do. It feels like Knight Rider a little bit.
Yeah.
It just really set the tone of the whole vibe of the song.
Yeah, that particular bass part is so iconic to me, as kind of the non-musician here in this conversation. But that, oh my gosh, that is just like, it hooks you.
I mean, that's, if we're going to give homage to who really did all of that sort of stuff, to me, there's people like Michael Jackson and Pharrell, Max Martin, where basically, Max Martin's whole thing is, and like Pharrell, you have that first 5 seconds to captivate them or they're gone. And Pharrell, every song Pharrell does is dun, 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 dun. Everybody get up. So he always starts with a 4 count. Yeah, I could get very nerdy about why he does that, but yeah, Max Martin's whole thing was start every song as if it's like being played in a club. So as soon as you hear the song, if you're in like a club dancing, you hear like the first line of whatever the song is, you'd be like, I know this song, and then you start going, you start dancing. So that was the idea. Is we wanted to start something really quick that was catchy off the bat, that put us into the zone of the song, which was that like Knight Rider sort of era vibe. I think it set the tone for how the whole song was going to go.
So is that kind of how you would define the sonic identity of Alive? Kind of this 80s nostalgic kind of sound?
To me, it has that. Yeah, to me, it has like the 80s retro synth wave, I think is like the actual term for it. But like mixed in with, them as a band, as like a rock band versus like all being, a fake synth sort of stuff. So adding that, starting with that retro sort of synthwave vibe, and then adding them into it and bringing them into it and letting it morph and morph and morph. And as JJ said, they're very talented producers as well. Like they're great musicians. So they were like, we want to add some stuff, and I was like, yes, here's the stems. Now impart your sort of footprint on it as well, even more than what we had here. And then, you know, it was sent to JJ after that. Like he said, they created that entire dubstep. We weren't even thinking of that, and then they knew it was going to do really well live. Like it was awesome live to see that.
Yeah.
Kelly, let's dig into that dubstep. I know you've got some good questions on that.
Do you actually know when that seed was sort of brought in, that they decided they were going to do that dubstep style drop? Because that is, I mean, it is, I hate to say it, it's the pivotal part of the actual album. I mean, there's some great tracks on there. There's some amazing hooks and everything else. But there is definitely a point where it really does just give the entire identity of the entire dual album.
So I'll give credit where credit is 100% due on that. That was completely their idea. That we didn't even think of that. That wasn't talked about in the room. They just kind of did that one on their own, and I think it's really great. I think it was cool. It was by surprise when we got the mix back. I was like, what is this section? What's happening?
Yeah.
Because it went to... It didn't do that. It went to the bridge. So it went to the post and went directly to the bridge section. And I don't know. They're in the future over there.
So how would it have flowed?
What it is.
How would the flow have actually have been if we'd have gone from into the bridge as such?
I can play what that sounds like really quickly.
Yeah. That was how we had written it in the room. Like it kind of went to this like flowy sort of like ambient part, like, you know, like basically that was him like running through the city sort of vibe, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of like flashbacks, everything in the storyline was like floating around and he was kind of getting lost in the song. So that was the original. And then they decided to add this big dubstep drop like right in between, which was crazy. It was the last thing that on my mind. I didn't even think of it. So I loved it. I thought it was so cool.
It's so out of step for them as well, because normally they hate to say it, but they do tend to stick to the formula. For them to just go, do you know what, I'm going to do something really weird and progressive and just drop this in the middle of it. It came as a shock. And I think that was the really beautiful thing about it, and to know it came directly from them is even better. So it's even more respect for them as writers.
Absolutely. Came directly from they're very talented. They're very talented musicians. And like, I almost thought it was like another retro throwback. It wasn't quite as far back as the 80s, but like that was like throwback to like the Skrillex of, oh my God. And so like in its way, it was retro because that was, what years was that? 2009, 10?
Something
11,
like that.
Skrillex really...
Yeah, it's like some weird first to last moment, isn't it? It's like right at the very end of their career before Skrillex kicked in.
Did you just bring up from first to last?
Yeah.
I did.
No one in this world like Emily. Oh my gosh.
Let's do old school emo.
I remember seeing him open up for this band called Census Fail in Portland, Oregon. There was probably like 50 people in the audience. Just, those were the days. Those were so much fun.
I know Census Failed.
Just mosh pit, being sweaty. What? Oh, come on! Don't get me reminiscing.
They were the best. They were always the best gigs. And yet to experience this, but I am dragging her into a pit.
Yeah, someday they say they're getting me in a mosh pit. I don't know.
Maybe
it is happening.
A road mosh pit.
So Jason, the band they've stated that you've kind of helped to sculpt the sound to attain the energy on this album, but particularly with this song. What did this involve? Did this include resampling synth sounds to create something new?
Sure. I've kind of already talked about it a little bit. So starting with some of those, like basically just the retro sounds that we had going on really helped. Let's see what these guys are. Oh, play. Is it gonna play? I don't know if you guys can hear this, right?
Yeah.
Like kind of that. It's already giving this Night Rider. Totally.
Now,
Yeah.
are these created through synths, or are these instruments that you're playing samples on?
3 of those. So I just played 4 instruments together. 3 of those
Mm.
were guitars, all live guitars.
Wow.
Kind of played them, kind of crafted the sound. Like did a lot of finding the old phaser sounds and stuff of the 80s. And then there was like a pad. There was this vocal chop pad that I kind of chopped up. Let's see, it's like side chained. So here's like a side chain it's tucked underneath, but it kind of creates this like movement. So we're pushing the song along. I didn't want it to sound too paddy, too slow. And this is just it without any of the effects on it. Just kind of like really simple, but then you put the stuff on it.
Yeah, because I think what's fascinating is all the layers. And I think in particular with this song, I feel like there's a lot of layers of sound. And I was gonna ask, are there any little hidden sounds? Like maybe it's that one, or are there any other kind of hidden sounds that maybe an average fan's ear probably wouldn't even
Oh
notice?
my God. There are so many. Yes, there's a lot. The human ear in general, unless it's trained, can only listen to 3 things at once. Can only really perceive 3 things at once. So on a lot of this stuff, there's multiple layers, but it just needs to sound like the drums, vocal, obviously, which is very important for the band and the singer. And then everything else needs to act like a pad. But without some of the elements, that pad feels thin or feels like it's not moving. And if we can, let me go down to the effects. Here's just the start of the effects of that day with 23 different effect tracks, which are like swooshes, and we might have ended up with some more. Well, especially after the dubstep session, that's got to be just like insane. Let's see, like that sort of stuff. That's in there. Just play. And it's all the things you might not hear in the final end, but we've got these guys. Lately,
Oh, yes. Okay, now that you went into the singing that part, I can kind of be like, oh, that's where that is.
Right,
Yeah.
so kind of put that in there, and then let's see. Baby, I'm alive. Yeah, a little bit different that way, but you got that going into the. Got all the drums that I have. They added some more drums on there, but just the very Night Rider sort of vibe, along with the bass.
The bass with a live bass as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so we've got the live bass going on in the chorus. So that's played, and then I put like a synth bass under it to get it to kind of bounce with it. Hear it on the outside. That's giving the 80s vibe. So as they were, as they were saying, that's nice of them to say I helped craft the sound, but we just kind of really leaned into bringing their aspects, so making sure there was something that they would always play, along with the kind of which would be the retro, the synth wave sort of 80s sound. And so I think that was some of the biggest ways of helping craft the sound. Layers. Gosh, we might go over guitars. Yeah. We might go over to his because they probably added 10 more guitars, huh? That's the live guitar. That's what kind of bringing the whole song together. So I was trying to leave a lot of space open for the vocal. If you start getting too much in there, the average listener will be like, what am I supposed to listen to? This is so big. I hear the vocal, but then that melody thing is fighting with this, fighting with that. And so as I'm kind of building this stuff, I want it to feel easy to listen to. And then when JJ gets it, he's not like, oh, now I got to figure out what to bury. What? How do I make this vocal come out, because he's got this guitar that's kind of fighting it melodically in the exact same frequency. So, you know, as we're building, I would love to go to the final, because I really want to see. I want to see like how much more we added by the time this was done. So this was day of. All this was done that exact same day.
This one, share. So the final version.
Just a couple more snare layers.
Yeah. So that was the first chorus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, still, so it looks like they had a bunch of kicks and I just put them down onto one track because the balances of the kick were correct, and I don't need to see that many things. I don't want to see that many things. This session was a lot bigger before I actually started, and part of my starting it is condensing it to where it makes sense to me. And visually, you know, color coding, however I want to see the session. So I got all the kicks on one track for the chorus and the post. They added a ton of snare layers. Those are probably all you. Hi-hats, rides, overheads, drum loops.
Did they play a live drum along with it? I feel like they did at one point.
Here's all the drums.
So really, it retained the overall.
Oh yeah.
So they played a lot, you know, to get the real drummer back in there. Wanted the band sounds to like also make sure it made its way into the final versus just strictly being, you know, 80s key drums, like kind of like I did. So once they added that, it also brought them back into that, which was the idea. They're not a full retro synth band. They're a band. And they're a great band. So make sure that they're prominent. And
transitions now, it looks like there's 40 or 50.
Effects, but it sounds like a lot of that was the dubstep over there.
No, dude. I mean,
I had like,
maybe I don't know.
I'd like
there's a lot of transitions.
I had 30.
Wow.
Bass feels.
These are basses.
Looks like they might have added one bass.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a new one. So they added
this one. Or no, this one.
They added this one.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then this whole folder, this is all the dubstep section.
That's great.
Of basses that they've added.
Oh wow.
And then there's a lot of synth layers in that as well. But yeah, so they added some synths for that section. Guitars, it looks like it's about the same as yours.
Yeah.
Vocals, probably the same as yours. Yeah, there's not a ton going on there.
Yeah, we tracked a lot of the vocals here. I don't know if they ended up. Did they send you new stuff? Did they end up like retracking?
As far as I know.
Okay, so then
And then you sent me a new comp of, there was like a change on one of the tracks.
Right.
But you had, you sent me that.
This is reminiscing, guys. I love it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here.
Just in general.
But, I mean, for the dubstep section, yeah, right.
Who are you people?
We can kind of go through layers in there. So there's a lot happening. There's just this, which is giving like a solid foundation to all of those, the wobbly ones.
That low end.
This. Another one, yep.
Looks like this.
Oh god.
Wow.
Honestly,
So like those all make up that 1 second.
Wow.
What if you muted those two?
This and this?
Yeah. No, not that. Sorry. Those two. Leave that bottom one. Just curious as to. Yeah. So kind of as you were asking about layers and stuff, there's like a couple layers in there like that just fill it out a little bit more.
Right.
But you wouldn't hear it unless we did that. And if it was muted, you might not hear it, but it made it just feel a little more up forward and front, which for dubstep make it sound like a robot screaming at your ear.
I feel like this dubstep, Kelly, must have been our scientist, our mad scientist, Dojun, probably.
Yeah,
this like, let me play around with this.
Dojun moment, definitely.
My guess it was Dojun's very heavily in that. He loves to produce and stuff. So my guess is he was the one that was like crafting that somewhere in a corner.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too, definitely.
Yeah, the wobble section. That. This is wild.
It is wild. This is crazy. Okay, now that one, like, I feel like some of them I can hear, but then other ones I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that sound was in there.
Right, totally. Like, I don't know what this is. So,
robots.
It's crazy. Yeah, but I mean, like, for the sake of showing kind of what the difference is, like, I can play the demo version of this verse. It's not going to let me share a plugin that's open for some reason, but I'll switch between the two, and if I did my job, hopefully you can tell the difference. But I'll start with the demo playing.
Was this back from them?
This was back from them.
Got it.
And then here's where it ended up. Yeah, and I'll play one real quick where I just kind of toggle between the two. I wish you could see it, but I'll toggle between the two. So I'll start with mine and then go to theirs. So it's not like it's worlds different here, but it doesn't have, like, the first note isn't crazy loud and then it gets quieter. It's a lot more neutral, and it just feels more like a breathing, pumping thing instead of here's a bunch of parts.
Sure.
Right? And maybe like a little more glossy. Like there's a little more top end to it.
There's a lot more room in yours. Like theirs, I felt like it was just everything was flat here, and you weren't like you couldn't discern between what was happening. It just felt like a wall of sound. At least in his, I feel like the drums sit here. I feel like the synth's over there. The bass is here. Like it kind of gets this own.
Yeah, you can pick up the differences in it. It all sits somewhere slightly different when JJ's looked at it, and you can tell.
Right, and that's part of the musicality, which is like I was saying about the mixer. Instead of having everything just up front and kind of getting lost in this like craziness. When he does, when the mixer does their thing, it's like, oh, okay, everything has its own. I get it. It's glued, but there's room. I'm not so scared.
JJ, not just your head needs to be. Yeah, not that your head needs to get any bigger in this conversation, but ever since we met with you the first time, as me as a novice in music, I think about you as I listen to songs, because now I'm like, oh, I understand that, in this song, the vocals need to be in the forefront and not that, guitar that's also there. And like, I have such a better understanding of how sounds need to come together. And mix together to present, the best kind of end product. I never thought about that before, but I think about that a lot now.
Just as a thing with JJ, for every compliment you give him, you have to give him 2 negative things about him. We got to balance it out. Like you can't just throw a compliment and leave it there, because this dude will become such a dick.
Anyway.
Such a dick. See? Anyway, back to my
let
greatness.
Me show you, me making the chorus better. deleted everything Jason did and replayed it. Told you.
See what you did? See what you did?
You did.
Yeah. Horribly toxic.
Yeah, you're a piece of shit. Anyway, so I'm gonna play the chorus. So this is the demo. And this is the mix. Oh, I guess I should have also included that part.
Totally. It just breathes so much better.
Mm.
It feels like the drums feel more of that stadium
Totally.
anthem thing.
Yeah.
The vocal has the more like space effecty thing.
Yeah, it's got the stadium, but even feels a little more retro with what you did with like the vocal when you put like kind of the it's like a phaser, like a widener sort of thing on the vocal. The guitars just open up, but again, it's all those like 80s sort of plucky guitars, which really help in a song like this.
Yeah.
Kind of just drive that forward, but it still feels like a band. It doesn't feel full retro. It doesn't feel like Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Right. Yeah, because this is an iconic song in terms of their live performance.
Yeah.
You know, when they perform this one. And I feel like I can't not listen to this song and hear some of the ad libs that Dojun and Woo-sung always do when they are like performing it live.
Yeah.
Like when they're like, make some fucking noise, or like, you know, whatever. It's like I can't not hear that now. And I think that just goes to that live rock sound that you were able to still integrate within it.
Yeah, and like as soon as it starts, like as soon as that comes out the gate, you're like, I know what song this is. And that was kind of back to the idea of that, like explaining the song. And JJ and I were blown away when we saw him live at the Staples Center? Not Staples Center. Forum.
The Forum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
We had no idea. We showed up, we're like, oh, yeah, it's sold out. Cool.
Yeah.
And I think
good for these guys.
I think I said this on the last time I was on the podcast. I had no idea who this band was when we worked with them. And I just seen Paramore at the Forum like 2 months prior. And I was like, oh, this band's playing the Forum? Like, that's crazy. And I mean, maybe because I had never heard of them, I was like, how are they playing the same place that Paramore is playing? And then we show up and they sold more tickets than Paramore. And we're sitting in the fucking crowd. And I sat next to a mom and her daughter who had come down from San Francisco. They'd been to like 3 or 4 shows. And I was like, how long have you been listening to this band? You know the record? Like, how do you know all of this? And they were just diehard fans.
Oh, yeah.
And then as soon as the concert started, we were just like, what the fuck were we just part of? This is amazing. Like,
yeah. As soon as we showed up, JJ was like, is that a fucking line?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, parking was so much more expensive than it was for Paramore.
Yeah, that was crazy.
You could have pulled out and be like, shit, I mixed 5 songs off this album. Where's my comp? Parking.
You should have.
Yeah, the comp parking.
Yeah.
The tickets weren't enough. You should have also called that parking.
LA gas and parking is pretty much, that's what we
pay for the gas to get down there. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we were blown away. These guys crushed it,
and everyone knew the lyrics. Like the entire stadium.
Yeah.
I have a video where I like panned around the entire stadium. Just couldn't believe because the record had just come out, and everyone knew every single lyric.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
And also to see it like in the States, you know,
right? Yeah, right.
Not the original country, which is crazy how big of like fan base they had here.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that. LA feels like it's the toughest place to have live shows. Right? Like everybody here is so just
yeah.
I'm better than them, you know.
Prove yourself.
Yeah.
So when you like play show in LA and you sell it out, especially the Forum, it's like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like good for you guys. Yeah, they crushed it, and every show looked like they just absolutely crushed it. And now they've got their new documentary /movie out. I think Is it released?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came out about a month ago. Worldwide
Yeah.
theater release. Yeah.
Crazy.
Good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, they just continue to crush. I think
Since the
everything
Sun.
else is pretty much what you had in, aside from the snare layers.
Yeah, them just kind of like playing live, putting some of the live drums on it, which really helped open that up. The overheads especially.
Yeah.
That helped that chorus just
Right.
Baby, I'm a whew, and then just open right up. Just made it so stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
one of the things that seems to be missing though from a lot of pop these days, isn't it? You don't have those overheads. So you just get that sort of really condensed sound, and you don't get that room reverberation. So you don't get that, like, want to be better term, that stadium rock sound. And I think that's one
I
of the
will give you
reasons. I was going to say, I think
Sorry,
it's one of the
go ahead.
reasons that it stands out as much as it does.
Well, I think I'm going to give you some hope on this. Is currently in pop music, which is great. Everything's coming back to like a natural production and playing. I mean, like Olivia Dean and just great, and everyone else is like, this is real. This is real drums. This is real guitars. Like, so I think that's just the next progression. And rock is making a huge comeback, and
Yeah.
raw rock too. I've worked
Yeah.
with several metal bands recently, and they're like, we don't want that super polished anymore. We want it to feel like, yes, you know, we still like go ahead and grit it, but we still want those raw drum tones. You know, I think we might be on the precipice of another Rage Against the Machine. Someone who's just bringing that energy and then this raw stadium. Like, I want to feel it. I want to feel something, and that's, you know, I feel it, and I felt the songs that they did too. Like every time they do it, I'm like, I feel like I could be there live. And it's almost like the record didn't do justice. The recording of it didn't do justice to what they did live.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite in a band. When you see someone live and go, wow, microphones can't capture how the magic of this band, which is great.
Well, I think it helps that the foundation of the song is them as a band. You know, it is stuff that they play live.
Yeah.
And then there's layers, like, and it's not even a ton. It's just like a couple layers that they can have on tracks, but it still translates because it feels like them regardless. Like it feels like them playing the record because live they are playing these instruments.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's great when producing with things like that, because I play guitar and everything too. And sometimes, you know, I'll play a guitar part that the artist can't play. And so they'll have to just use a backing track. But these guys are like, oh yeah, do this? I'm like, yeah, that's it. It's great. So we can just be musicians in the room and not have to worry about, you know, dumbing what we're playing down or figuring out a way around, you know, the lack of the holes in the talent with some of the artists. Like these guys,
especially Jeff's guitar skills. Like Taehyung's guitar skills are incredible.
Completely. Well, I mean, they're seasoned on tour now. Like, I think that is the ultimate crash course schooling education for like any musician, because you are just out there doing it every night, practicing on the bus, like, and then in the studio is when you fine tune. You hear every little mistake that you do, and that's when you learn. Oh, I'm singing a little flat when I go to these notes, or like, oh, I'm always muting this string just a tiny bit. You know, and so I think there's a great dance between live and the studio. You know,
so JJ, let's kind of go back to your mixing. Do you remember like any kind of big challenges you had with mixing the song?
I remember a lot of this because, especially looking back, like a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing is stuff I wouldn't do now, where like I work. A lot of this song was done on groups because it needed to be done quickly, and it was a lot of sounds making up one sound. Like that dubstep section I showed you, the layers, those don't necessarily need to be treated as separate instruments. It's making up one sound. And so because I was doing it quickly, it had to be, I'm doing it as a group. I think the biggest challenge we had was because the dubstep section was added in after the fact, we needed to make it feel intentional. And they had said, we're trying to figure out this transition. So if you could give that some extra attention.
Right.
And I don't even remember necessarily what the answer was. It might have been like a reverb throw.
I think we had to
or
do some like swells and stuff because originally it went from that post to the bridge, and so it was built melodically
and it was
to swell into it and do that. But we were swelling into this craziness, so we almost had to like adjust how the song built in that post chorus to allow for that, for the huge breakdown spot, and then transfer out of that
back into a smaller section.
Back into a smaller section. So it's fun.
One of the things we did was cut that vocal, so it no longer had the "Baby I'm Alive."
Yeah,
it was "Baby I'm a." Yeah. Because I think originally that was "Baby I'm Alive."
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Like it went straight into that bridge section. That was one of them. I'm sure there was some like volume swells and stuff. I think you had added even a couple more layers right here.
I'm pretty sure I had to go. Yes. Yeah.
So stuff going into it to make it feel like, oh right, we did put thought into this instead of just here's a dubstep section.
Right. Just kind of out of the blue.
Yeah.
Kind of pulled, as a listener, I feel like I'm getting sucked into that section almost.
Right. And that would be the transition folder, these things.
Like and then also like something like it almost felt like an 80s sound was turning into the dubstep vibe. So, you know, that was just to kind of like spell out, it's like, hey, don't be scared, but here comes the drop in the roller coaster. Like,
you're coming with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be scared, but this is happening.
And I don't know if these guitars were there. Yeah, I think it was mainly those few things. I don't think it was difficult to do.
No.
It just required some thought for a second of like how, now that they've added this section without him knowing, how do we make it work? And then so sending over the extra transitions, and then I think this was the big one, was like deciding to cut the vocal, because otherwise,
right? It's like we were all designing a car, and they were like, "Hey, put this missile launcher on top."
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
It could have very easily just been like a layer cake sandwich, though, couldn't it? It's just really like we've got this, and you just get that really sort of bulk transition. But yeah, I mean, the fact that you've allowed it to flow, it's like you've guided it very nicely in. And it's such a small bit as well, but I'm 100% sure people miss.
Yeah. And I think this is the same vocal, so I'll play it with what I think was there originally.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't hit the same as...
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It doesn't hit the same.
It's got to feel like everything was interrupted.
Exactly.
Like, one is cruising, and then like we're bringing something in, and then we move back to exit it.
Yeah, exactly.
Back into what originally, baby, I'm alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that bit is so smooth.
Back to our regularly scheduled program.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we mute that without it,
it's a little abrasive.
It's just
It's going to go.
Stop this.
Yeah, it feels like two puzzle pieces that weren't glued together. But that just simple little thing of his vocal saying that was all that was needed to bring it all together and make the song continue to flow.
It's amazing that something so simple, though, just works as, I don't want to say the ultimate Band-Aid, but it is. It's the ultimate plaster over it, and it just works so well.
Yeah.
All right. We're looking for...
I can do that for
I forgot that was...
Is that sound in there?
That's somebody doing 5 vocals, isn't it?
Yeah. Although, did those actually make it?
Yeah. I made this into a folder, so that's
Didn't know that was there, did you?
No way!
I didn't hear that again.
Not in here, but they're in there.
Yeah.
Oh my god, you gotta play that one more time. I need to hear that again.
I've got a bit more respect for them now.
I want to know who that is. Whose vocal is that? Is that Doju?
No idea.
I don't know.
This is what it's labeled: Rhythm Scream.
I don't know where that
Nice.
came from. Was that my original? Was it?
I love that.
Nothing, but yeah, I don't.
Oh, was it on the vocals? Was that a
it's
vocal?
it's in like the vocal chop section, but
Because rhythm, I believe, is like loops that you can find. So I don't know if that's actually
how is it
them.
saying?
Is it live?
Their lyrics. Oh, I don't know.
That's not a lyric. They found
so. They found a loop.
That might have been in the
Yeah, that's crazy. Because this pre-chorus, like you're saying, with when you guys were trying harmonies and stuff, it would have been easy to make it feel big, but it's not. It needed to be the intimate thing, and this vocoder does that.
I'm pretty
really
sure
nicely.
somewhere we had stacked harms in there, and we were just like, this doesn't feel right. Like, I'm bored. Like, we were all just kind of bored.
Yeah.
We're like, wow, this is stacked and beautiful, but this is really boring. So, and then I muted him and played it, and that, like we were saying at the very beginning, I think that was like the aha moment. We were like,
Yeah.
oh, it is. We have the connection tissue between that verse sound and getting into the big chorus, and that was it. Spelled it out.
Yeah. And so here it is with, and I'll mute it halfway through.
Lately, my whole world feels like shaking. Everything is faded, changing. I don't care, they call me crazy.
Right, like it's so like
Oh my god, that's so cool. I'm sorry, I'm geeking out right now.
by itself.
Kelly's like, this is my everyday normal. She's like, this is not going to be that exciting, Anne. I'm like fucking geeking out.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Oh my god, play that again. Play it again.
Well, here's the soloed vocoder.
It's like shaking. Everything is faded, changing. I don't care, they call me crazy.
But here it is with, and then I'll mute it again for you.
Lately, my whole world feels like shaking. Everything is faded, changing. I don't care, they call me
That's crazy how much you had to thin out that vocal to allow for that.
It's amazing how different it sounds.
There was like a drum in there. Oh, it's the second one that has the.
Yeah, the second one has the rest of the stuff. The first one, it was just like, let's just make it.
Both of them originally had the percussion that were in the second pre-chorus, and then we muted that. The first one, we're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Well, and then this verse, it looks like these were I added some delay throws and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll play this real quick. So there's like these little that help bring
really subtle,
line.
yeah.
Right.
It keeps those open spots from getting bored,
Yeah.
especially in today's world where everybody needs
Yeah,
the
the
fireworks
attention
show.
span,
Yeah, 24/7.
Like, but without those two,
It just adds that
so they're just-
richness, doesn't it?
like, it's on still.
No, it's the
Oh, I see.
talkie thingy.
Yeah, so adding things like that even help in certain sections. What is this? Yeah, there's this thing. But without it, it's just. So it's just accenting it more. What are some of these? What's this section?
That type stuff, what JJ was showing you, is what's very important to me in a mixer. Somebody who has an ear, so I don't have to go through and do all. Because sometimes those throws aren't necessary when the mix comes together. You're like, actually, there's an instrument playing in there. It doesn't need the throw, but JJ has a production ear, like he's a musician as well, so he can hear. He's like, I could see it be a little boring. Let me throw just some of these little throws in there. It's very important in a mixer to be able to produce as well. Or at least have a production ear. It doesn't have to be able to produce a whole track.
Produce for
you
shit.
have you have a musical ear.
Sure, yeah. I'll take it.
We'll say that.
What are these in the grid? Are these? Right.
Some of those are played, I think. Right? The pedal tone.
Some of them are fake, is what you're saying?
I feel like that's.
So what effects are on that?
There's what?
You have
what effects are on that vocal there?
Just some reverb. It seems like these are just EQ compressed. I know you guys can't see them, unfortunately, but yeah, there's only some, just some reverb. Without it, is this?
It's just there's a heavy tune to make it feel like it's played on a keyboard. Why do I feel so alive?
Yeah, and then
why do I feel so alive?
That was the original one. We did that in the studio.
Yeah,
I think they might have added those harms later.
Why do I feel so alive?
That was
such a great singer.
Yeah,
he's such a great singer.
You know, one thing I noticed on this song, and it's one of the reasons why I love it so much, is I feel like Dojun is the predominant vocalist, which honestly I don't feel like in a lot of their songs is necessarily always the case. He'll sing verses, but a lot of times it is Wusong that sings like a chorus. But for me, like really, Wusong only sings the second verse and then he ends the song.
Yeah.
And I love that it's predominantly Dojun's vocals that you get in this song because he sounds incredible.
I think he was, I think while I was kind of working on some of the production stuff, I think they kind of listened to each other sing in the back and they just were like, Dojun, you sound fantastic on this. Why don't you hold it down? And they did. I think we followed the rule of music. If it sounds good, it is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a great job. Sang his face off on it.
Yeah.
That was a very easy vocal tracking session, if I remember right.
So how did you go about making sure that the vocals didn't get lost? Because obviously there's so many synths, there's so many things that are competing in the same frequencies. How did you ensure that they sort of were predominant and up front in the mix?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the goal with every song, right? Is like, how do you make sure the vocal is intelligible the entire time and not lost? Because no one's like, if you're a guitar player, sure, maybe you're excited about the guitar that's happening in the song, but the majority of people are there to connect with the vocals. So it's the same thing as this song to the next song for the most part. I mean, of course, there are genres that prioritize other things, but a lot of it comes down to EQ, which is where you're carving out frequencies so that other frequencies can kind of live in that spot without them clouding each other.
Yeah.
And so getting the guitars, but Jason's a great engineer, a great producer. He's already making sure he's creating with the space in mind. So the guitar is only going to take up the area a guitar should take. It's not going to trample on where the synth should, where the bass should. Everything's very intentional. And it makes my job easier with, okay, you created this with the vocal in mind. You left the space, which he talked about in the production session. We left space for the vocal to live. Some songs don't do that. They think they slap on the vocal at the last second, but they've already filled all that space. So it's a lot more complicated. This song was not very complicated. And a lot of things are very, like, the guitars aren't drawn out. They're not pad guitars. They're very transient. So it's not constantly taking the room of the vocal. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of stuff that's taking a lot of room.
Well, I mean,
for a long period
you
of
don't
time.
need a
It
lot of
doesn't
stuff
seem
to
like
create
it,
a
yeah.
wall. You don't need a lot of stuff to create a wall of sound. I mean, Michael Jackson
Mm.
said it best: the most important things are the things not played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the ba-na-na-na-na, ba-na-na-na-na, that space created a space. So it's it's really about having your sonic filled up, the whole sonic spectrum filled up, but selectively doing it. And so if you got the drums filling up that area, you don't need anything else in that area, and you just try and stay out of the way of the vocal as much as possible.
And you're telling people what to listen for.
Yeah.
There's times like in this right, like you're giving them something to, hey, we want you to know this guitar is also a hook of itself for a second, and then we're back into vocal.
We just out here. This is just a fishing ship. Hooks on hooks on hooks.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I live for dad jokes, by the way.
Yeah.
I love dad jokes.
Yeah, well, you are a dad now, so.
Honestly, guys, that is amazing. It's such an amazing walkthrough to be able to actually fully understand what goes into making a track like that, and not just what's recorded by the musician, but everything else that's built on top of it, all the actual crafting of the sound, every sort of plugin that's added, every effect that's put on top, everything that's compressed and and dragged out. I mean, I don't think people really understand that all those tiny little nuances create this huge behemoth of sound that they see at the end of the day, and they enjoy, whether it's live or it's in the car or it's a club or whatever. Honestly, it's testament to you two guys that this track is as fantastic as it is.
Yeah, thank you both, geniuses behind the scenes. So let's wrap up with a little more details. So this is the fan service part. We want to know, our viewers and our listeners love the Rose. So we want to know what it was like working with the band. And I know it was 3 years ago now. So we have a little clip, Jason. You probably forgot, Jason, this even exists out in the universe.
What are you saying?
But I found it. So I'm going to play a little something for you, and then I have a few questions about the Rose.
Oh, Jason Mater. Okay, yo. So he's the producer here. Okay, it was dope as yeah. 2 crazy songs. LA. One, there won't be. I think we gotta cut it off. Yeah. Shit. 말리지 마. 말리지 마. And I don't want to back.
I love that.
Wow.
Is that the studio? Is that the same studio we're seeing?
Yeah, it's the studio,
It started with him on
There.
right there.
So cool. I love that. I love that. So tell us what it was like, if you even remember now. Like, what were they like during the recording process? Kind of what are some memorable moments?
I mean, first it was fun. We were just having a really good time. It's music, and we were all doing what we love. So I think the energy in the room was so positive to begin with. I mean, you could tell we were all like being stupid and dancing, just horrible dancing. On my part, they were great. Everyone else was great. I'll only talk for myself about the dancing.
Well, I don't know. Somebody apparently was telling Sammy, like, okay, you need to stop that. What are you doing? Like, whatever weird dance he was doing.
Again, I will only speak for myself. I just remember being really fun but easy, because they are talented. They were goofing around, like nobody was taking life too seriously, and that helps create a great song. And also, everything they did was intentional and with purpose too. So it wasn't, nobody was in there wasting time. Like, we had a goal. We wanted to write the song, but we wanted to have a good time while we were doing it. And so, as you could tell, I think we were just all goofing off, but also like new ideas come along. We're like, yes, keep going. All right, somebody tell an inappropriate joke, and then we would. Jason, dance, and then I don't even know what I did.
Like a crazy.
But yeah, it was just really fun with the guys. They're down to earth. They're just really cool, really talented guys that love to joke and but also can create great music. So it was a very good day, and yes, I do remember it, and it was really fun.
Did anybody's creativity surprise you?
Good question.
Wonderfully stated, perfectly executed question. First time. Woo!
Yay, me! This is Editor Cal, and you may want to stick around to the end of the credits for exactly what Jason meant.
I will say this, that because I went in not knowing a whole heck of a lot about these guys, that I'm like pleasantly surprised when the band is just talented.
Yeah.
When they are good musicians, when it's not like, all right, here comes some studio magic to make them sound good, because as of the last 25 years, we've had a lot of tools to make just say a really shitty sounding artist sound great. And there was a lot of like studio magic and tricks they were great on record, and then you see them live and you're like, oh yeah, you should have been a banker. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, come on, we need plumbers again. Just stop. Like, oh my God. But these guys were just awesome. They were super talented. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is a band with real musicians who know their instruments, who know what they're doing. Like, you can sing, you can play guitar. Hey, you can play drums. Like, oh, you can play keys too? Like, let's go. Like, and as you can tell, there was no pressure at that point. So pleasantly surprised versus like, oh, so you guys have talent. I was like, yes, this is awesome. Like, cool. So the records that I've heard of you actually played on them, and you actually sang them, and you can play them live. So it was no surprise they're as good live as they are in the studio.
Well, you know, personally, being that we do a podcast centered on them, I'm so glad today we learned they're really talented and they're not dicks. So that's a great way to end it.
What? Huh? Whoa, you can see that?
All right. Well, we're going to wrap today with, we always do a humor segment. JJ, do you remember the humor segment we did for you when you were on? Do you even remember?
Vaguely.
Haven't we been doing the humor segment?
All
the jokes started now.
I like to refer to this as the pain section, not the. She always says it's the humor section. It's not. It's pain. It's indefinite pain.
Do you remember we did?
Proceed.
Okay, I did a little different. I'm gonna do rapid fire questions. Okay. And both of you have to answer at the same time. So it's going to be the first answer that comes to your mind. So you can't think about it too hard. Okay? All right. First question. When you were creating this song alive, favorite moment?
When I didn't have to talk to Jason anymore.
Wait, can I amend mine? Can I amend mine?
No.
No.
I
didn't realize
keep it going. Keep it going.
I'm like Bridge. You're like, Jason should die.
Okay, second question.
I didn't realize.
Hardest part of this song to create?
Working with JJ.
The bridge, because Jason had to add more things and I didn't want to talk to him anymore.
All right, next question. Both of you have worked on multiple songs for the Rose. Okay, which one is your favorite?
Anyone that's not with Jason. No, real answer.
All right, we're done here.
Really? Yeah. I think, not just saying this because we're on this song, but I think this one was my favorite because it was the most experimental. Oh, sorry, we're supposed to give short answers, right? Rapid fire. Yeah. This song.
There's another one we did that it's not released. It might be released, but I can't say the name of it.
Oh. It's on the album that never was. Oh my god. We want that album so bad.
It's a really dope song that we started during that same like writing session, and it's pretty crazy. So it's really fun. But I mean, Alive is a really fun song too.
All right, one word that describes Alive.
Anthemic.
That's it.
One word.
You said one word.
Jason, you're not gonna come up with one.
Limitations like that.
I don't know if you can beat anthemic. That's a good word to describe.
That's
Anthemic.
what the song is. It feels like it's an anthem that you play in a stadium.
Which is like, again, back to, not to your heads be too big when you end this conversation with us and give you too many compliments. But I think it's a testament to both of your talents.
Yeah.
To create a fucking anthem, like that doesn't happen all the time. So great work to both of you. All right, last one. Which member of the Rose had the most creative ideas?
June?
I mean, I don't know that I even talked to him.
You didn't?
I talked to Rachel. She was the one that was forwarding everything. So
I'd say June, probably.
Yeah. Dojun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
He was.
All right.
I mean, they all had really creative ideas. I felt like he was very insertive on adding a bunch of ideas.
Love it. Well, thank you guys. That wraps our episode, our Into the Studio deep dive into the song Alive. This was incredible. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Of course.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
Thank you, gents.
Please rate our podcast. Leave us comments about this episode. We always love to hear your feedback. If you don't already, follow us on social media on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and X. We are at KRock_cast all across the board.
Click here to subscribe.
Check out our website, www.krockcast.com. I think, Kelly, we have finally launched some new merch, right?
It's on
For people
there.
to check out on the website. So check us out. All right, guys. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, this is Kevin Youngkins with Robert Lang Studios and sound engineer for Trauma by The Rose. You're watching and listening to K-Rock Cast. Check out their podcast and K-Rock recommends for the song and other great independent artists.
Surprise you creatively. Yeah, but I can't even talk. See if they start again.
To be honest,
I thought maybe, Kelly, I thought that was just the way you pronounced it. I don't know.
I've just obviously borrowed somebody else's fucking dentures. Jesus Christ.
you just put in tiglets today and you don't know how to talk.
Come on, it's Sunday evening. What the hell do I know? Right, let's try that again. Did anybody surprise you? Creativity? Oh my fucking god!
Oh god, here we go.
No, we're gonna stay here. You say
I can't say it. What is the word?
Oh god, we're gonna have. What was the word that one episode that you could not say?
It was like 3 hours later.
We made a blooper reel because she could not say this word.
It was me just swearing for like 15 minutes.
And I interrupted you. Remember, you did it right, and I interrupted you. You were like, "Fuck you!"
no, just a podcast of you swearing consistently. It'd be so great just to like put that on in LA traffic, and it's just you.
Oh shit! It happens every now and again. That's all I can say.
Well, we needed another blooper reel. So.
Give it one more go.
Do you want to say it, or do you just want me to go ahead and know what you're trying to say? So you don't
No, let's. I might even alter the sentence.
You can just leave it at anybody surprise you.
Right, let's try it again without laughing, because that's the worst thing. I'll say it right and then burst out laughing.